Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama.
Well, hello, everybody out there in podcast land listening to the Iowa Podcast. Usually with Justin Brady, but not today. Today it is with myself, Mark Rixner, the moniker of the Ricks in the Mix, taking over for Justin. Great friends of mine, Justin and his wife, Vanessa. And I'm honored that he asked me to come in here and do this for him today. He's out and about taking care of business, TCOB. So I told him that, if you wanted somebody who wouldn't completely mess up the podcast, maybe you should choose me. And so he graciously did. So thanks for joining us on the Iowa Podcast here today. Got some great things to talk about, and I've got a great guest with me. I've noticed a trend amongst a lot of people, especially people who are, probably 35 to 50, or even maybe a little bit older than that, of people who are just saying goodbye to their jobs. They're just saying, I'm done. And I'm not talking about a 15-year-old who just decides to quit Burger King. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have been ensconced in a job or a career for several years and have now decided that they're out. And I find it fascinating that this is taking place right now. And maybe you are in that sort of situation too. Maybe you listening know somebody, or maybe you're involved in that sort of situation where you want to get out. Not for any certainly terrible reason, but you have reasons that I want to talk about today, and I want to talk about that with my guest. And I want to keep it optimistic because I do really firmly believe that in leaving a job and leaving a career, it's exciting. And you can really find some awesome things down the road. It's not all gloom and doom. I know several people right now who are leaving their job with no safety net. They don't have a plan. They're kind of leaping before they look. I know people who are leaving their job and have a plan. And I have had 3 people in the last 3 weeks ask me, hey, what should I do? Now, I'm no career counselor. I'm no life coach. I'm not a psychiatrist. So we're not going to make that into a therapy session today by any stretch. But I want you to think about the fact that so many people are leaving to find something different. And when you're in a job, when you're in a career, there are various reasons for leaving. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here later on with my guest, who's sitting right across from me. And she is an example of somebody who did make that big career change. And I know for a lot of people, it's scary. The prospect of being in a career for 10, 15, 20 years and saying, I'm out. That can be terrifying for sure. But also, as I said before, it can be exciting. And I think that this guest that I have here today can shed some light on that, certainly with what she does. So I want to get right to it. And I want to talk to you about the person who's sitting across from me. I've known her for several years. And we didn't really, I guess we met. You could say that. I was a teacher at Goodrill Middle School on the east side of Des Moines in 1997. And does that make you feel old?
Yeah, a little bit.
And so back in that day, I was a teacher, and she was actually my former student. And her name is Laura Lacina. I knew her better as Laura Peterson back in the day, but she has been for several years Laura Lacina, her 2 kids, and her awesome husband, Randy. And she is a fascinating story because she is the owner, the sole proprietor, El Presidente, if you will, the founder of an establishment called Home Slice Pies in Bondurant, Iowa. So, Laura, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And here's the question I have for you. When I picture you, or I view you as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur.
Oh, thank you.
Does that sound weird when people do people say that about you?
It definitely does.
How do
Imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah. How do people talk to you when they address you, other than Laura, the people who know you? Do they call you any sort of moniker?
The pie lady.
The pie lady. That's great. But you seriously, you have taken something and built it and made it your own. And I don't think you expected to do that, really. I don't think.
Definitely not.
I don't think you woke up. She wasn't one of those people who, when they were 6 years old, was playing with the Easy Bake Oven, for those of you who remember what the Easy Bake Oven was, and said, you know what? When I get older, I want to make pies for the masses.
No. definitely not.
So kind of tell us a little bit, about your background, about where you got started. And then I want to kind of, for the audience out there, I want to talk about how that kind of relates to what people are going through and what I'm seeing as a trend right now in people leaving their jobs and doing something different. So where did you go to school? How did you get started with your degree and everything else?
I went to Northwest Missouri State University in Maryville, Missouri, and majored at first in journalism. And I knew I would always wanted to do something in communications and work on the creative side of things. Journalism was not for me, and so I switched that very quickly to public relations, and that's what I ultimately got my degree in. And when I left college, I worked at a call center, very popular job for right out of college in 2007, in the middle of a recession. And then I got an opportunity to work for the AmeriCorps in North Carolina. And so I moved there for a year, worked in marketing and event planning there, loved it, fell in love with the nonprofit sector, moved back to Des Moines, and worked at a nonprofit here in Des Moines. It was great. It was fine. But that particular job, I was working 60, 75 hours a week, traveling a lot, not home a lot, no social life to speak of whatsoever. And I decided to make a change, and I just went totally off-brand for me, and I went to a financial institution where I worked as an office manager for a few years. And then I had babies, and I stayed home with them. So that's kind of takes us up to what I was doing until COVID hit. And then COVID happened, and I was home with 2 kids and watching children also, other people's children. My husband was considered essential employee, and so he was working as usual, and I was home with my kids a lot by myself. And I needed some kind of creative outlet. I needed to get back to that creativity somehow. So I started baking and just really working with my hands, making it really visually appealing. I did pie, and I made the lattice work and braids and flowers and made it really pretty. Posted about it on social media, and people said, I would buy that. And so that little seed was planted, and the business was born. And that is where it all began.
So going back a little bit, how many years were you at the different jobs that you were at? You said you worked at a financial institution. You worked at some nonprofits. How many years would you say you were there?
Total, or each one individually?
Just each one individually, if you can remember. If not, total's fine.
The first one I was there for a year and a half, 2 years almost.
And what prompted the change from that position?
Well, it's call center work. It's not super gratifying. It was fun because I was single, and a lot of people were in the same life stage as me. So we'd do happy hours and that kind of thing. But the job itself was not great. Some personal life changes. I had broken up with a boyfriend. My grandmother died, and I was kind of like, what do I do? I'm not happy at work. Personal changes are like, why am I here? And I got this opportunity to work for the AmeriCorps. And so I packed up my little Kia and I just tootled across the country, which was great. I was there for a year. That was my contract, was a year. And then I came back and worked in nonprofit for two years. And then switched over to the financial institution in 2013 and was there until my son was born, a few months after he was born. So I was there about 2.5 years.
So when you worked for the nonprofit, why did you leave the nonprofit?
In North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
It was my contract.
Okay.
It was just AmeriCorps' the 1-year contract. Mine was, at least.
And so the biggest question then is, why didn't you go back to the financial world after your son was born? Why did you not care to go back there?
That is not how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in a very quiet office. It just wasn't, I needed creativity. I needed some kind of stimulation in that way. It was not there. I was happy there. I loved it there. The people there were amazing. It was the best part about it was that I could come to work, do my job, go home, and not think about my job until I have to come back. And that was great.
So everybody out there listening, I mean, does this sound familiar to any of you? that are listening, I mean, maybe how you're feeling at a job. And I'm not trying to convince you that you don't like your job. Those of you listening, that's great. I hope you do. I hope you love what you do for a living. But I see this a lot lately. And one of the things that, Laura, that you touched on was not feeling fulfilled. I think there are about 4 different things that if you look at some of the research that they talk about, one big deal of reason people leave their job or leave their career is they don't feel like they're being utilized. They don't feel like they're doing everything they could be doing. That's certainly one. Another one is the toxicity. There are workplaces that just, for your own mental health, you got to get out. And the Business Insider and the Harvard Review also talked about a couple other ones, not just mental health and not just feeling unfulfilled, but also salary. Salary is a big one too. Mm-hmm. Not enough money to make ends meet the way you want them to. And finally, just the fact that you want to be creative. You talked about it a little bit. You just have to do something you want to do with that unfulfilled sort of aspect of it. And I think people are saying, not like our parents, the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. Baby boomers, I think, stayed in their job. They got their job. They were paid to do it. They made it there almost every single day, and they retired from that job.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, that's very noble.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think this generation is saying, that's great, but we're not like that. If we don't feel like we're getting what we want out of our job, we're going to go do something different.
Absolutely.
So when did you know it was time to not go back into that world of work with a boss and a desk job or with other people? Was there a moment when you decided that's it?
My plan was to always go back to work when my daughter went back to school full time. And that year was this year. My business was already up and going. And so it was probably a year ahead of that we had that conversation that was like, okay, is this what we want to do? Is this where we want to be? Is this how I want to make a living? Or do I want to just throw in the towel and go back to a 9-to-5 and call it good? We decided to take the risk into the pie biz, and that has paid off in spades over and over. I'm only growing. I'm just getting all of these new customers. And I think where it happened for us was our first Thanksgiving, where I was still baking out of my house. I baked out of my house for 2 years. When I baked out of my house for the first Thanksgiving, and we had to do like 250 pies. And it was people we didn't know. When we first started, it was friends and family and, friends of friends and whatever. And that web spread so fast. And then all of a sudden it was Thanksgiving, and that's the Super Bowl of the pie world, right? So like all of a sudden our whole living room is filled up with pie boxes, and we're trying to manage our time with like, okay, we're going to do pumpkin pies, and we can do this much at this, for this long. And we're trying to do all the math and figure it out. And my husband, I remember he looked at me and he was like, is this real? Is this happening? And I said, yeah, keep working, because I don't have time to have this philosophical conversation right now.
Be quiet and fold boxes.
Yeah, just do it. And that's been kind of our motto with what we've got going on with, we've just really hit the ground running, and we've just grown so quickly. And it wasn't really even a conversation after that. It was like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, because now I've made a name for myself, and now I've got this clientele and these regulars. I've got people that come in to get pie every week, and I know their families, and I know their kids, and I know their anniversaries, and I know these people. And I'm so proud of that, because so many businesses are just a transaction and they're out the door. But I've got a lot of customers that I know their families, and that makes me really proud.
So we talked a little bit about, it's scary. It's got to be scary at the beginning to start a brand new business of some kind, especially when you haven't really known that. I mean, because you and I have talked before about the fact that this was not something you planned.
No.
You didn't ever sit down and say, I wanted to be the pie lady. I didn't want. So was there ever a time when you left that work world, and I know you work now, but for yourself and with others, was there ever a time where you thought, maybe this is a bad idea?
Maybe every week. I don't know. I feel like when you go into business, and I did not come up working in kitchens. I worked at a restaurant for my very first job. I was the hostess, and then I worked as a hostess for a while right after college. But kitchen life was not my training. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to follow the rules and figure it out as I go. that is pretty much my motto at this point, trial by fire. And we're really just going week to week. And when I think about, okay, I can't do this, it's like, well, but look behind you. Look at all the things that have already happened. I can totally do this. There's no reason I can't. I'm a smart person. I have to pep talk myself all the time.
And it's that confidence that's great about you. And it's the confidence. Well, it is. And I want, everybody out there, I think that being terrified to get out of a job and leaving before you look a little bit, it's perfectly natural. Like I had said, I have a couple people I know that are doing that right now as we speak. But to have the confidence and the optimism that things will work out, that if you're doing what you love, it will eventually pay off in spades. And you talked something else that I thought was very interesting too, Laura, about work-life balance. That's a big deal, especially these days after COVID and after all of that. I think people are really taking stock because after major events like after 9/11, after COVID, people tend to sit back and evaluate their marriage, they evaluate their careers. And so a lot of people now are saying, am I having the time to be with my kids? Am I having the time to enjoy myself? Or is it all just work, work, work? Did you ever find that was the case in your previous jobs, that you felt like you couldn't get away from it, that you weren't having enough time for yourself or for your family?
Sometimes I didn't have kids for a lot of when I worked. And my most recent 9-to-5 job, I had a 5-month-old when I left. So sometimes I felt that I didn't have a lot of post-work commitments either. But I know that's different for everybody. I know that people have, they see you as a single person or as a newly married person without kids, and they're like, here, you do this weekend thing. Here, you do this. And it's easy to say yes, because you, as a new employee coming up in it, everything, you want to prove yourself as somebody who can work hard and can do it. And then you find yourself like, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm completely overloaded. I can't do this, and I shouldn't have to. And that's a hard reality to face, but then you have to make a choice.
So again, we're talking with Laura Lacina. She is the founder and, guru of Home Slice Pies. And before we get into a little bit more about Home Slice Pies and about how amazing it is, because I want everybody out there to hear what she has to say. You've heard a little bit of her story, and now I want you to hear about her amazing place that she has and what she does and what she can do for you. I want everybody out there to think about for a minute and kind of take stock. There are those people who do leap before they look, and there are those people who have a plan, and there are those people who will continue to be at a job that maybe they're miserable at. And I hope that by listening to this today, and I hope that by listening to Laura, that you can understand that take stock. It's okay to do that. It's okay to reflect and say, what is going to make you feel fulfilled in your career? What is going to give you enjoyment and pleasure? And if you're not getting the things that you want out of your job, maybe take a look at that. And she is living proof that it can be done, that you can go from a degree in journalism and public relations, and you can morph that into whatever you want. And even if you don't have a degree, I think you can be anything that you want to be in this day and age. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but the hard work paid off. I mean, you were saying at the very beginning of the pie saga, you were in up to your neck with work. I mean, I visited you when you were still making pies out of your house.
Yes.
Flour
you saw it
everywhere.
firsthand.
Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. There were racks of pies all over the place in the kitchen, and it looked like that was all your life right then and there. And it has grown so much since then. So now I want to talk about Home Slice Pies.
Yeah.
First of all, I was texting back and forth with Laura when she was trying to find a name for her place. And I could tell she was humoring me because I would throw out all of these amazing, I thought they were gold. I thought they were the greatest names ever. And she's like, yeah. And then she comes and she says, it's Home Slice Pies. Why did you land on Home Slice Pies? And is there any meaning behind it?
Not really. That's like,
Great story. Thanks for
tuning in. There's not really a story. We were trying to come up with something that appealed to my entire audience. For the older generation of people, pie is very nostalgic. It is a slice of what feels like home. They always tie pie back to a holiday or a memory or something that's not to say that's the same for younger generations, but younger generations, home slice means something different. Like, what's up, home slice? So we were trying to marry that audience is what we were trying to do there. We had a lot of ideas. Your ideas were great. I was not humoring you. I just was like, what do I do? Yeah. What do I? And I was listing out my grandmother's names and trying to pair those together and trying to do all that stuff. I just needed something that maybe I didn't have to explain to everybody every time. Like, my grandmother's names. Oh, why did you name it that? Oh, because it's my grandmother's names. Over and over until I die. No, thank you. Home slice. Everyone either thinks it's cool and homey or hilarious. And so we kind of try to make a little mixture of that in the pie shop.
And I think that's been successful. I think you're right on the money. I think the younger people that view it the way you said they do, and the older people, yeah. And so, because when you think about pie, you think about an older clientele predominantly, and you think about the holidays. I mean, that's kind of what you think, but that's not what you're all about. No. I've been to your store. So what do you do? What are some unique things to home slice pie? Obviously, you make pies. We know that. We don't have to go into every single type of pie, but what is something unique about home slice pies that people absolutely need to come see you in Bondurant?
So what we're known for is pie flights. And I actually got this idea from a woman I used to work with in North Carolina. There's a great pie shop in Asheville called The Bake Shop, and they do pie flights, but it's slices of pie to make a pie flight. Ours are mini pies. And when I was baking out of my house, I would announce 4 flavors every week, and you could pre-order those. And then slowly I would have those pre-orders plus 10 or plus 20 or whatever, because there were always people last minute. Now that we're in the shop, my orders change every week. My flavors change every week. And we have 6 to 8 flavors a week in the shop that you can come and mix and match. That's what's unique about us. We've got the pie flights is what we're known for. But you can always call in and get your custom whole pie made or custom flight made or whatever. But people drive to Bondurant to get a pie flight.
Does anybody else do pie flights? Are you aware of any other place in the state of Iowa that does pie flights?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I'm making pie so much that I don't pay that much attention to what's going on with other pie people. But I don't think so. I think people kind of stick to the whole pie or the slice deal.
And I've had the pie flight. It's great. All 4 little mini pies, they're fantastic. I'm telling you, everybody listening, they're starting to think, maybe I should get some pie for dessert tonight. Good. It's exciting. I mean, she's doing something new, and you've got your own place now, too. I mean, it was just in the kitchen. I mean, that's what I think is so cool about what you've done, Laura, is that you've taken just that idea and you've just run with it. And I mean, you've got websites, you've got all kinds of social media. You've also been... I know that you've done Facebook Live, you've been at events, you're kind of into the whole Iowa scene. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you've been to and worked with other people on their sort of arts and crafts and cooking.
So the Facebook Live thing, I have to say, it started because we were traveling and I didn't have time to do a post. And so I just went live and I said, here's my flavors for the week. And that stuck. And so now on Tuesdays at noon, I go live and announce my flavors for the week. And people come in and they say, I feel like I know you because I make sure I watch you. Or people set their alarms to make sure that they tune into my live video, which is hilarious to me because they get me at all stages. Like my hair's a mess. I'm not wearing makeup. There's, my kid screamed at me once because she wanted some Cheetos. They just get real life in that moment. Now what I've done...
A slice of home.
A slice of home. You're welcome. And then I've done Today in Iowa. I've done a shoot there. I've been featured in the Des Moines Register. I've won a few awards, which is exciting. They're on my wall. If you come to the pie shop and you can see for yourself. Sure. So it's been really fun. I know there's been a YouTube channel that featured me, an RV traveling couple that featured me, which was really fun. It's crazy to me that word of mouth is what it is because I don't advertise outside of my own social media. People tell their friends, they tell their coworkers, and that's how my business has grown.
And I've asked it before about, not believing that this was going to happen. I mean, this wasn't something that you set out to do, but would you have changed anything to get where you are at this point? Would you do something differently? Would you not be making pies? Or are you like, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Sometimes I think about going back to the office and just leaving work at work and being there for all my kids' things and whatever. I can't imagine life like that anymore. It's so boring. It's so mundane. And that life, I don't think I could do it now that I've experienced this. And it's so fun, and you meet new people, and you can experiment with different flavors, and it's such an adventure every day. It's hard, and it's a lot of work. And there are times when I've worked dozens of hours in a day, and you're on your feet a lot, and it's exhausting work, but it's so much more gratifying doing that than just punching a time clock every single day. Truly.
Well, and, again, if you're one of those people out there who's listening that's punching a time clock and you're loving what you do, by all means, keep doing it.
Yeah, we need
do
you.
it. 100%. But I think what we're getting at here is, and what I talked about at the top of the podcast is, when it's time, it's time. And I think, you knew with your family, you knew that after COVID, it was time for something different, and there's been a change. How long has Home Slice Pies been in existence? From its inception in your kitchen to today, how long have you been doing it?
2020 is when we started in the kitchen, and we moved into the pie shop in 2022. You're putting me on the spot with these numbers.
That's okay.
2022, August of 2022. So we're coming up on 2 years in the pie shop.
And it's a great little place. Where is it located in Bondurant?
We're at 106 Main Street Southeast in Bondurant. We're right across from Reclaim Rails and next to Iowa Floor Covering there in Bondurant on Main Street.
And Laura does weddings, she does birthdays, she does Mother's Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, bar mitzvahs, whatever you happen to have.
I did Passover pies this year.
Passover pies?
Yeah,
See, she does it all. And this is all from her creative mind. And I know that everybody out there listening, there are people who would like to see how things would work on the other side, get out of that 9 to 5 maybe, or go for broke. Scary? Yes. But as you heard Laura talk about, fulfilling. And I do think it's really kind of weird that it's been such a trend lately. I don't know if you know anybody personally, Laura, who's kind of making that leap, but I know a bunch of people, and sometimes it's people my age, like it's the midlife crisis thing, but the younger people are doing it too. And I think it's just great to see that somebody like yourself can be an entrepreneur, give something to Iowa that we don't have. I mean, yeah, there are other places where you can buy a piece of pie. We know this, right?
Right.
But to have that kind of home feel, to kind of get to know people in Bondurant. I mean, you've sold thousands of pies to thousands of people.
Right.
And they come in and they know about what you do, and they want to be a part of that and something different and unique. It's out there, folks. It's out there. Challenge yourself and think about how you're feeling about things in terms of your career. And take it from Laura and take it from me. Hard work, yes, but it can be done. Laura, is there anything else? By the way, what are the flavors of the week?
This week?
Right now, this week. You got to tell them.
French silk.
That's
cream.
Listen, if you haven't had, this is going to sound like a cheap plug, but I'm dead serious. I've had the French silk that Laura makes. And if you're a French silk fan, you've either maybe bought it at Perkins or you've had it somewhere else. Great. But this crust, and I know it sounds weird, but the crust on that pie
Thank you.
is crazy good.
Thank you.
So French silk, what else?
French silk, peanut butter cream. We have those in the shop almost every week. We've got bluebarb. It is the height of rhubarb season right now. So we've got blueberry rhubarb this week. Bluebarb,
clever.
We've got salted caramel cashew, which think pecan pie texture-wise, right? But caramely and with cashews. And it's like a very delicious candy bar. Just amazing. We've got strawberry key lime. We've got Arkansas possum this week.
Okay, now hold on. Now, clearly it's not a possum in a pie. This is not Sweeney Todd or anything like that. So what is Alabama possum pie?
Arkansas possum.
Excuse me. Arkansas. Well, they probably have possums in Alabama,
People in Alabama will be like, that's not our pie. Don't talk to me about that.
Okay.
It's a pecan shortbread crust, and then it's got a sweet cream cheese layer inside of it, and a homemade chocolate pudding on top with whipped cream and pecans on top.
I know the people listening are thinking they need pie. I know.
You need one.
You need one. And
it's
listen,
not a want, it's a need.
It's a need. Well said. Laura, you've said it all, and I really appreciate your time today. And I hope that maybe just even one person listening is inspired to maybe make a break from, as you said, the mundane and do something that's much more fulfilling. And, like you said, hard work, but looking back now, you wouldn't change it for the world. Anything else you want to talk about, get quick plug in for Home Slice Pies or any event that we need to know about that's coming up?
I mean, just come to me with any pie needs. If you have a custom order, a birthday, my biggest holiday, and I'm not even kidding, is husbands' birthdays. Everybody's husband prefers pie over cake. It's crazy.
That is weird.
My husband doesn't really like pie. Or cake. Can you make a pie for him? Sure. So if your husband is one of those people.
And she's had people show up at her door for pie, right? I mean, there's
100%.
people who will come to your house.
Yes.
And that doesn't creep you out. You're okay with that.
Well, I started this out of my house.
Right.
So a lot of my OG people, they will still come to the house every once in a while.
Sure.
Not often.
Laura, thank you very much. Laura Lacina, owner and sole proprietor of Home Slice Pies in Bondurant, Iowa. Living proof that you can make a break, you can do something different, go for broke, and really enjoy yourself and do an amazing job at it. So visit her in Bondurant at Home Slice Pies. Laura, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So, folks, again, I want to thank all of you for listening, and hopefully this was a little bit of an inspirational podcast for you on the Iowa Podcast, normally hosted by the Justin Brady, great friend of mine. Justin, thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure. I am Mark Rixner. The moniker is The Rix in the Mix. And thanks for having me, and have yourselves a great rest of your day. And tune in next week. Justin will be back ready to go and give you a great podcast. Bye-bye.